They say time heals all wounds. But in the market, time doesn't heal. It reveals. Every tick, every candle, every waiting moment tests not your strategy, but your soul. And that's the secret Jesse Livermore knew better than anyone. The market isn't conquered by brilliance, but by patience. What if I told you that most traders don't lose because they're wrong, but because they can't wait to be right? Comment below. Have you ever exited too early only to watch the market move exactly where you expected it to go? When I first read Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, I didn't understand the depth of Livermore's philosophy. I thought it was about charts, tape reading, and price action. But over the years, I realized something far deeper. Livermore's edge wasn't just analytical. It was emotional discipline sculpted through pain, waiting, and self-control. He once said, "It was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was my sitting." Think about that. In a world obsessed with action, where every second brings a new signal, a fresh alert, a tempting entry, his greatest weapon was the ability to do nothing. And nothing might just be the hardest trade you'll ever take. Livermore lived through markets that swallowed entire fortunes overnight. He wasn't a man of casual luck. He was a man who stood still while others panicked. In his era, the early 1900s, there was no algorithmic trading, no high-frequency edge. Just men and their emotions, pitted against one another in the great arena of speculation. And yet, it's the same game today. Only now the noise is louder, the screen's brighter, and the temptation instant. Every flicker of the chart whispers, "Act now." Every tweet screams, "Don't miss out." And every ounce of impatience feels like progress, until it destroys you. Patience, in Livermore's world, wasn't passive. It was active restraint. It was knowing when not to trade with the same precision as knowing when to strike. He understood that the market rewards timing, not time spent trading. And the more he waited, the more the market revealed its hand. That's what we're here to uncover. The unseen muscle of patience. The art of sitting through uncertainty. Of waiting for your edge to ripen like fruit in the sun. And of refusing to pluck it before it's time. In this episode, we'll dive deep into Livermore's secret, how he mastered patience when everyone else was chasing action. We'll dissect the psychology behind waiting, the traps that lure us into early trades, and how this century-old wisdom applies to today's markets. Because if you think patience is boring, you haven't understood its power. Patience isn't passive, it's profitable. So let's go back, not to the charts, but to the mind of a man who made and lost fortunes by one rule above all: sit tight. Every trader faces two enemies, the market outside and the mind within. But only one of them truly decides your fate. Be honest. How many times have you entered a trade just because you had to do something? Comment below, what drives your impatience? Boredom, fear, or the need to feel in control? I've come to realize that most traders don't blow up because of bad strategies. They blow up because they can't sit still. They need to be in the market, to feel alive, to feel productive, to feel like they're doing something. But the market doesn't care about your need for movement. It rewards only timing, not activity. Jesse Livermore understood this long before trading became digital, before notifications, alerts, and dopamine hits flooded our every decision. He knew that the greatest cost in trading isn't losing money, it's losing patience. Picture this. You're sitting there, charts glowing in the dim light. The market's moving, but not quite where you want it. You tell yourself, just one trade, just to stay sharp. That's how impatience disguises itself as discipline. You convince yourself that taking small trades keeps you engaged, but deep down, you know it's not engagement. It's escape from the discomfort of waiting, from the stillness that feels like stagnation. Livermore called this the trader's paradox. The need for action when the correct action is inaction. He often sat for weeks without touching a position. He'd study, observe, wait, like a hunter watching from the brush. When he finally moved, he did so with precision. Every trade meant something. It was deliberate, not impulsive. But that restraint came with pain. The kind of psychological pain most traders can't bear. Because in trading, doing nothing feels wrong. Our brains crave confirmation, validation, movement. We're wired for immediacy. The market preys on that. Think about it. Brokers love active traders. Platforms gamify your trades. Green flashes, instant fills, confetti on profits. It's all designed to make you act more, think less. But Livermore's success came from doing the opposite. He detached from the illusion of control. He knew that patience wasn't about waiting for the market. It was about waiting through yourself. The moments of silence, the creeping self-doubt, the urge to click buy just to feel alive, all of that was part of the game. He once said, "The human side of every person is the greatest enemy of the average investor or speculator." And that's the truth. The war isn't with price, it's with impulse. Modern traders face this inner conflict more intensely than ever. In Livermore's day, he might have watched the ticker tape roll for hours. Today, we watch hundreds of candles a minute. The temptation is relentless. But the principle hasn't changed. The more you need to trade, the less control you truly have. So here's the paradox. We enter the market to find freedom. Financial freedom, time freedom, emotional freedom. Yet without patience, we become slaves to every tick, every fluctuation, every flicker of price. Patience isn't the absence of movement. It's the presence of mastery. The ability to wait when others are restless, to observe when others react, to sit when others chase. Livermore learned that markets aren't designed to reward intelligence. They reward composure. And that composure comes from confronting the inner conflict that whispers, "You're missing out." But the truth? You never miss out on what isn't ready. The market doesn't destroy traders all at once. It seduces them, one impulsive click at a time. Have you ever taken a trade you knew wasn't part of your plan, just because you couldn't stand watching others make money? Be honest. Drop a yes in the comments if that's ever been you. Every trader eventually faces the trap. It doesn't come with alarms or flashing warnings. It comes quietly, wrapped in boredom, frustration, and the illusion of opportunity. You're sitting there watching price move without you. You tell yourself, "I'll just scalp this. Just a small trade. It won't hurt." And for a moment, it feels good. You're doing something. You're back in control. But then, the market reminds you who's boss. The price dips against you. You hesitate. You don't cut it. You tell yourself, "It's just noise." Then it drops further. You move your stop. Now it's not a trade. It's a test of ego. You rationalize, double down, average in, and before you know it, you're no longer trading your system. You're trading your emotions. That's how it begins. The death spiral of impulse. Jesse Livermore saw it happen countless times, not only to others, but to himself. He admitted it openly. Even after decades in the market, even after making millions, he wasn't immune. The difference was, he learned to recognize it faster each time. He knew that the market has one primary purpose, to exploit human impatience. When others wait, it sleeps. When they grow restless, it strikes. Livermore understood that markets are designed to inflict maximum damage on those who need to act. He called it the fool's need for constant activity. The impulse to be right, to make something happen, to force profit where patience should rule. It's psychological warfare, and your own mind is the battlefield. You see, impatience isn't just emotional, it's biological. When we wait, dopamine levels drop. Our brains crave stimulation. We feel discomfort, and to escape it, we act. That's why traders so often click buy or sell without logic. It's not a decision, it's a relief. But in trading, relief is expensive. Livermore knew that impulse trading is like gambling with loaded dice. The odds aren't just against you, they're designed to make you think you're about to win. That's why the first few impulsive trades sometimes do work. The market rewards impatience just enough to make you believe in it. Then when your guard is down, it takes everything back. And yet, here's the most painful truth. The trap doesn't end with a loss. It ends with a pattern. The more impulsive trades you take, the more you normalize them. You start believing that intuition is experience, that quickness is skill. But really, it's addiction. The need for immediacy, disguised as confidence. Livermore called this the speculator's disease, the inability to do nothing. He watched men make fortunes and lose them, not because they didn't know the market, but because they couldn't master their own timing. They traded to feel in control. But control, Livermore said, doesn't come from action. It comes from alignment. And that's the essence of patience. Alignment with the right moment. Patience isn't waiting for something to happen. It's waiting for the right thing to happen. It's the difference between a sniper and a man shooting into the dark. One waits for precision. The other wastes ammunition. In today's market, impatience has evolved. Social media, alerts, influencers, all whisper the same lie. You're missing the move. But Livermore's truth cuts through the noise like a blade. There's always another move. But there's never another chance to keep your discipline. So the question becomes, can you outweight your own need for action? Because that's the real battle. You versus your need to trade. Most traders chase price. Jesse Livermore chased confirmation. And that made all the difference. If you had the patience to wait days or weeks for the perfect setup, but knew it would test every ounce of discipline you have, could you do it? Comment below, yes or no. Jesse Livermore saw the market as a living organism. Not random, not chaotic, but rhythmic. It breathed, expanded, contracted. It tested the weak and rewarded the strong, not with speed, but with silence. He believed that every trend, every move, every explosion in price was preceded by a period of tension. Like a rope pulled tight before it snaps. The crowd sees nothing happening.
But Livermore?
He saw pressure building. He'd wait for that exact moment. The moment the line breaks, and then he'd strike. He said it best. After spending many years in Wall Street, and after making and losing millions of dollars, I want to tell you this. It was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting. That one sentence is the cornerstone of his philosophy, because behind it lies a brutal truth. The majority of traders destroy themselves not because they can't analyze markets, but because they can't wait long enough for their analysis to mature. Livermore's patience wasn't laziness, it was strategic stillness. He'd build his conviction slowly. He'd test his theory quietly. He'd let the market prove itself to him. And once it did, he didn't hesitate. He pounced. He called it the timing instinct, but it wasn't instinct in the mystical sense. It was discipline forged through years of watching the same human behavior play out. Fear, greed, impatience, overconfidence. The patterns didn't change. Only the faces did. In Livermore's mind, patience was a filter. It separated the impulsive from the intelligent. He used waiting as a weapon, a way to exhaust the undisciplined traders before the real move even began. While the crowd jumped in and out, bleeding from small losses, Livermore sat on his hands, emotionless, observing. He'd often watch a stock for weeks, sometimes months, without a single trade. To him, the waiting was the work. Because he knew the real profit wasn't made in buying or selling, it was made in timing. And here's where his genius truly shined. He understood that every market, bullish or bearish, has what he called the pivotal point. A price level that, once broken, changes everything. He didn't predict that moment. He waited for it. Because he knew, when it came, it would trigger not just price movement, but human reaction. Panic, euphoria, disbelief. And that reaction is what he profited from. Most traders try to anticipate the move. Livermore waited for proof. He once said, "A man must study general conditions to size them up so as to be able to anticipate probabilities." But he never confused anticipation with action. He waited until probability became reality. That distinction between guessing and waiting is what separates patience from passivity. Livermore wasn't passive. He was a predator, calm, deliberate, and deadly. He knew that the market's greatest test was time itself, and he built his fortune by mastering it. He understood what so few do today, that in trading, the best move often looks like no move at all. That inaction is not weakness, it's positioning. It's the gathering of strength before the strike. And when the time finally came, he didn't second guess. He didn't hesitate. Because the waiting had done its work, it had built conviction. That's what patience gives you. Clarity. And clarity is power. Every great trader has that one moment, the one mistake that sears itself into their memory forever. For Jesse Livermore, that moment came not when he lost everything, but when he acted too soon. Have you ever entered a trade just a bit early, thinking you were catching the move first, only to watch the market prove you wrong? Type "been there" in the comments if you know that pain. In 1906, Jesse Livermore was at the height of his confidence. He had just come off a series of remarkable wins, timing market turns almost perfectly, earning a reputation as the boy plunger of Wall Street. His instincts were sharp, his bankroll strong, his confidence unshakable. And that's exactly when the market humbled him. He began shorting stocks ahead of what he believed would be a major downturn. The signs were there: credit tightening, speculative frenzy, valuations stretched to absurd levels. Livermore knew the correction was coming. He was right, just not yet. He jumped in early, too early. The market kept rising, squeezing his positions, forcing him to cover with massive losses. The irony? Only weeks later the collapse he predicted actually came. He had been right on direction, but wrong on timing. And in Livermore's world, wrong timing was the same as being wrong altogether. That loss cut deep. Not financially, but psychologically. Because it wasn't caused by ignorance, it was caused by impatience. He wrote later about that period, saying that it taught him his greatest lesson. The market does not beat them. They beat themselves, because though they have brains, they cannot sit tight. He had seen the future forming, and he couldn't wait for it to arrive. He had all the evidence, all the conviction, but not the patience to let the trade mature. That moment reshaped him. He realized that being early was no different than being wrong. The market only rewards precision, not prophecy. From that day forward, Livermore vowed never to trade a hunch until the market confirmed it. He wouldn't move until price itself gave him permission. Years later, during the great crash of 1907, that new patience made him millions. He waited and waited, and when the panic finally began, he was positioned perfectly. This time, his timing wasn't early. It was surgical. That's when he realized patience isn't just emotional restraint, it's an edge. He said, "The big money is not in the buying and the selling, but in the waiting." Those words came from the scar tissue of that 1906 loss, because he had seen both sides. The pain of premature entry and the power of precise timing. Now imagine the emotional toll of that first mistake. The frustration of being right but punished. The self-doubt. The urge to prove yourself by re-entering too soon. Every trader today knows that feeling. The one that says, "If I just try again, I'll make it back." But Livermore didn't chase revenge. He studied his impatience until he understood it. He turned that wound into wisdom. And that's the difference between amateurs and masters. Amateurs trade to prove they're right. Masters trade to align with the market's timing. Livermore began to see every moment of waiting as part of the trade itself. The silence was the setup. He'd often sit in his office for days, eyes fixed on the ticker tape, hands still. People thought he was doing nothing. But he was doing everything. Controlling his impulses, sharpening his focus, listening for the faintest shift in tone from the market. Because he knew that when the market finally moved, it would move fast. And when it did, those who waited would already be in position. Patience, he realized, wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about earning timing. It was the discipline to endure the in-between, the tension before the move, the boredom before the profit. That's the kind of patience that separates the great from the forgotten. There's a kind of silence that follows a great loss, not the silence of peace but of reckoning. Jesse Livermore knew that silence better than anyone. When you take a huge loss, do you step back to reflect, or jump right back in to make it back? Comment below with one word: reflect or revenge. After the disaster of 1906, Jesse Livermore was broke. Again. He'd made millions, and in the blink of an eye, lost it all. The city lights of New York felt colder. The tickers that once sang victory now hissed defeat. Even the marble floors of the brokerage houses echoed differently beneath his feet. Mocking, hollow, indifferent. He retreated from the market, humiliated and haunted. Reporters called him reckless. Rivals called him finished. But what truly crushed him wasn't the money. It was the realization that his own impatience had betrayed him. He sat alone in his apartment for days, replaying every move. The entries, the exits, the moments of hesitation. He saw clearly for the first time how his need for action had outpaced his own conviction. And in that quiet, he began to see the truth. The market punishes those who cannot be still. It was there, in that solitude, that Livermore began to reshape his entire identity as a trader. He realized he had mastered the external game, the reading of the tape, the market conditions, but not the internal one. His emotions, not the market, had cost him his fortune. He later said, "A man must believe in himself and his judgment if he expects to make a living at this game. That is why I don't believe in tips." But belief alone wasn't enough. Belief needed patience, and patience needed humility. So he made a promise to never again let boredom dictate a trade. He vowed to wait for clarity, even if it meant watching opportunities pass untouched. But promises made in quiet are easy to break under pressure. When Livermore returned to the market months later, he found himself at war with old habits. The noise, the rush, the endless hum of speculation. It all came back. He'd open a position, then second-guess it. Cut too early, re-enter too late. He wasn't losing because he lacked skill. He was losing because he lacked stillness. That was his breaking point. Not the financial ruin, but the recognition that he was not yet the man his future success demanded him to be. You see, patience is forged in loss. It's born from sitting in the ruins of your own decisions and realizing that no trade can heal you. Livermore learned that until a trader can do nothing without falling apart, they will always fall apart when they do something. He once described that stage as the hardest part of speculation, the rebuilding of self-trust. Because after a loss, the instinct is to act, to prove you still know what you're doing, to feel control again. But Livermore did the opposite. He stopped. He listened. He waited. And in that waiting, he rediscovered his power. That period of silence became the foundation of his resurgence. He began journaling his thoughts, studying his emotional reactions as closely as he studied prices. He learned to recognize the patterns of his own psychology, his triggers, his impatience, his rationalizations. He treated his emotions as data, and slowly the storm within him began to calm. When he finally returned to serious trading, he did so not as the boy plunger, but as a patient observer, a man who understood that time could either be his executioner or his ally. Livermore realized something that few ever do. Every great trader is born twice, the first time in ambition, the second in humility. That humility is what turned his losses into lessons. It was the turning point that transformed impatience into intuition. He no longer asked, "When will the market move?" He began asking, "When is it ready for me to move with it?" That subtle shift, waiting for alignment instead of anticipation, became his new edge. He learned that when you master the silence after loss, you master yourself. And once you master yourself, the market can no longer break you. In every trader's journey there comes a moment when the noise fades, and one rule stands above all. For Jesse Livermore, that rule was simple, brutal, and eternal. Sit tight. If you could only follow one trading rule for the rest of your life, what would it be? Comment below. What's your golden rule of discipline? Livermore's breakthrough came not from another indicator or pattern, but from a revelation about human nature. He finally understood that the market's true enemy wasn't fear or greed. It was impatience. Every failure he'd endured, every fortune he'd lost, every sleepless night of regret traced back to one root cause: moving before the market was ready. He once wrote, "Men who can both be right and sit tight are uncommon." That word, uncommon, was no accident, because the ability to sit tight when your analysis is correct is far rarer than spotting the opportunity in the first place. Most traders are brilliant analysts but terrible waiters. They can see the trend forming, but they can't survive the noise between signal and confirmation. They cut their winners short, protect small profits, and then wonder why their equity curves never rise. Livermore saw the truth. The market's greatest movements reward the still-hearted, not the quick-handed, so he created his rule. Wait until the market confirms your position. And once it does, sit tight until it proves you wrong. That became his North Star. He wouldn't jump at the first sign of movement. He'd wait for strength, for volume, for clarity. And once he entered, he refused to be shaken out by noise, minor reversals, or public opinion. Because patience doesn't end with the entry. It deepens after it. He often compared trading to deep-sea fishing. The line trembles. The rod bends slightly. You feel the weight, but you don't yank it. You wait until the fish commits. You sit tight. If you move too early, you lose both the bait and the chance. But if you hold steady, if you wait for that full pull, you catch something real. That's what Livermore did. He waited for the pull. He knew the market always tested conviction before rewarding it. It's designed that way, to shake out the impatient, the over-leveraged, the emotional. To him, patience was a competitive edge. While others were burning capital in constant trades, he was building readiness. That's what few understand. Waiting is a position. It's not doing nothing. It's being ready for everything. Livermore's sit-tight rule became the backbone of his later triumphs, especially in 1907 and again in 1929, when he made his legendary fortune shorting the market during the crash. He didn't win because he predicted the collapse. Many predicted it. He won because he waited for it to begin, and then he stayed until it was done. That's patience as power, patience as profit, patience as identity. He wrote, "A man must know himself thoroughly if he would become a great trader. Patience, courage, and self-control are qualities more indispensable than any technical skill." That triad, patience, courage, and control, became his creed. Because patience without courage is hesitation. Courage without control is recklessness. But when all three align, you get precision. And here's the paradox that makes Livermore timeless. He didn't preach, wait forever. He preached, wait for alignment. The moment price and psychology converge, that's your shot. Then you act decisively. And once you're in, you sit tight until the market proves your story wrong. Modern traders often confuse patience with paralysis. They think waiting means fear of missing out. But Livermore flipped that idea. He taught that patience protects you from missing the real move. The big lesson? You don't get paid for effort. You get paid for timing, and timing is born from waiting with intention. Livermore's sit-tight rule is a philosophy, not a slogan. It's the daily practice of emotional control, the restraint to wait for the market to reveal itself, and the maturity to accept that most of trading is simply preparation for the moment that matters. Because in the end, all the charts, systems, and setups in the world mean nothing if you can't do the hardest thing of all. Wait. We live in the fastest markets in history. Yet the greatest advantage you can still have is the slowest one. Patience. What's harder for you? Waiting for the perfect entry, or holding on to a winning trade? Comment below with entry or exit. In Livermore's day, traders waited hours for the ticker tape to roll out the next line of prices. Today, we see those prices change 50 times a second. We have real-time data, global access, algorithms executing millions of trades per minute. And yet, despite all this speed, most traders still lose for the same reason they did 100 years ago. They can't wait. Livermore's world moved in hours. Ours moves in microseconds. But the human mind, it hasn't evolved nearly as fast. That's why patience isn't outdated. It's undervalued. In fact, it's become even rarer, and therefore even more powerful. Let's face it, everything around you is engineered to destroy your attention span. Trading platforms flash signals. Social media parades profits. Notifications trigger urgency. Every message screams, act now or be left behind. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The faster the market moves, the slower you must become. Because the market will always try to pull you into its tempo. To make you trade emotionally, not intelligently. Livermore's principle of sit tight is the antidote to that modern disease. He understood what most traders still ignore. The best trades don't come every day. Opportunities must mature. Trends must prove themselves. And conviction must be earned, not assumed. Modern traders chase setups like swarms chasing light. They move from one chart to another, looking for action. But action is not progress. Livermore would have told you, activity is the illusion of control. If he were alive today, Livermore would probably say something like this. The tools have changed. The emotions haven't. You can trade from your phone, but you can't escape your impatience. And that's exactly why his philosophy still works. Every modern trader faces three forms of impatience. The impatience to enter. You see a small move, you want in. The impatience to hold. You see small profits, you take them. The impatience to recover. You see a loss, you want revenge. Livermore conquered all three by mastering one discipline. The pause. The pause before entry. The pause before reaction. The pause before judgment. He trained himself to delay the urge for action long enough to verify truth. That's what made him dangerous. While others were emotional, he was deliberate. Today, the pause looks different. It might mean waiting for confirmation across multiple time frames. It might mean holding through algorithmic noise. It might mean walking away from the screen for a day to clear your perspective. But the essence remains identical. Patience is control over impulse. Livermore's approach also counters one of the biggest modern trading myths, that more trades equal more opportunity. In reality, More trades often equal more errors. The traders who last are not the ones who trade the most, but the ones who wait the most. Just think about this. In a world where everyone's chasing speed, slowness becomes a competitive edge. Patience has become a kind of asymmetrical weapon. The quieter you are, the less you react, the more predictable others become. That's how professionals think. They wait until the market shows its hand. Then they bet when the odds are obvious. The beauty of Livermore's wisdom is that it fits perfectly into today's noise. Because in a market dominated by algorithms, the human edge is emotional discipline. An algorithm can react faster, but it can't wait better than you. So patience isn't weakness. It's your last great edge. The trader who can wait while others overtrade will always find better prices, better timing, and better emotional control. And remember this. Livermore didn't just sit tight when the market was calm. He sat tight when the world was screaming. When others panicked, he watched. When others jumped, he waited. And when everyone else finally realized the truth, he was already positioned. That's what mastery of patience looks like. Not stillness born of fear, but stillness born of confidence. Patience isn't a personality trait, it's a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained, refined, and turned into your greatest trading weapon. How do you personally build patience in your trading routine? Meditation, journaling, strict rules, or pure willpower? Comment below. Let's share what works. Jesse Livermore didn't start patient. He became patient through pain. He built his discipline the same way traders today must, by creating rules that force stillness until readiness emerges. Patience isn't natural, it's practiced. So let's take his philosophy and translate it into something you can do, step by step. Because knowing Livermore's wisdom is one thing, living it is another. Step 1. Define your pivotal point. Before you even enter, Livermore waited for what he called the pivotal point, the level that separates noise from truth. Today, that means identifying the exact conditions that must exist before you trade. Not feelings, not intuition, conditions. Your entry should be triggered by the market confirming your thesis, not you trying to anticipate it. Write it down. I will not trade until X, Y, and Z are confirmed. When you predefine your pivotal point, patience becomes logical, not emotional. You wait because you must, not because you're uncertain. Step 2. Make no trade a valid position. Livermore believed waiting was part of the game. He didn't see inactivity as a lack of opportunity. He saw it as defensive positioning. You must treat cash or non-participation as a legitimate stance. Try this mental shift. When you're not trading, you're trading time. You're buying clarity, not missing opportunity. Write it into your plan. I will reward myself for staying out of low-quality setups. Because discipline deserves reinforcement. Every good no trade is a win against your own impatience. Step 3. Delay reaction. Use the Livermore pause. Livermore trained himself to wait through the first wave of emotion. He knew the first impulse, fear, greed, excitement, is rarely the truth. In practice, that means this. When you feel the urge to act, wait one more candle, one more data point, one more confirmation. If the setup is real, it'll still be there. If it disappears, it was never worth chasing. Patience doesn't mean waiting forever. It means waiting until emotion subsides and clarity returns. Step 4. Build a sitting system. Livermore's wealth was built not from entering perfectly, but from holding perfectly. To sit tight in today's world, you must structure your positions in a way that reduces emotional pressure. That means setting position sizes small enough to sleep at night, predefining both profit targets and invalidation levels, using alerts or automation to prevent obsessive watching. If you need to stare at your screen for 12 hours to feel safe, you've already lost control. Livermore said, "A man must stick to his game." Your game is execution, not obsession. Step 5. Journal the waiting. This one is overlooked. Livermore studied not just the market, but himself. When you're waiting, write down what you feel. What thoughts come up? Fear of missing out? Boredom? Doubt? That's data. Psychological data. When you review it later, you'll see patterns emerge. You'll notice exactly when impatience sneaks in, and what triggers it. That awareness is how patience becomes second nature. Livermore said, "The game of speculation is the most uniformly fascinating game in the world. But it is not a game for the stupid, the mentally lazy, or the person of inferior emotional balance." That last phrase, emotional balance, is built through self-observation. Step 6. Create rituals of stillness. The day. Best traders today, those who truly follow Livermore's philosophy, build environments that support patience. That might mean checking charts only at specific intervals, setting alarms for entries instead of staring endlessly, having a morning ritual that centers the mind before facing volatility. Livermore had his own version. He would step away from the ticker, walk the city, let his thoughts settle. He knew that time away from the market sharpened his edge when he returned. Patience isn't built during the trade. It's built between trades. Step 7. Reward the discipline, not the outcome. The final step is philosophical, but vital. Most traders only reward profits. Livermore rewarded process, because he knew that even a patient trade can lose, and that doesn't make it wrong. He once said, "There is nothing new on Wall Street." There can't be, because speculation is as old as the hills. The behavior that wins doesn't change. So reward yourself not for gains, but for adherence to the timeless rules: clarity, confirmation, and calm. Patience doesn't guarantee you'll win every trade, but it guarantees you'll last long enough to catch the ones that matter. Livermore's philosophy, when turned into daily habits, becomes something larger than trading. It becomes a mindset, a way of operating in a chaotic world, because the same patience that builds great trades also builds great lives. The trader who can wait can weather anything. In the end, the market doesn't reward the loudest voice or the fastest finger. It rewards the quiet mind, the one that can wait while the world loses its nerve. If this philosophy spoke to you, comment below with one word: patience. Let's see how many traders are truly ready to master the waiting game. There's a certain silence that falls after a storm. It's not the silence of peace, but of understanding. That's the silence Jesse Livermore lived for. After the ticker tape stopped, after the market closed, after the hysteria faded, he would stand alone in his study, looking at the numbers, the charts, the movements that had swallowed thousands of fortunes, and he'd say to himself quietly, "It was never about predicting. It was about waiting for the truth to reveal itself." That was Livermore's secret. Not timing the market, but timing himself. He understood that the greatest battles weren't fought on the exchange floor. They were fought within his own impulses. He mastered the art of doing nothing until the right moment demanded everything. That's where his real genius lived. Not in intellect, not in analysis, but in emotional stillness. Because patience is not just about waiting. It's about enduring discomfort without surrendering discipline. It's about watching opportunities pass, knowing your moment will come. It's about controlling the only thing that truly matters in this game: yourself. Now fast forward to our time. We sit before multiple monitors. The market breathes in milliseconds. The temptation is constant. The noise infinite. And yet, the rule remains the same. The trader who waits, not out of fear, but out of strength, will always be ahead of the trader who reacts. Every click, every impulse, every quick decision takes you further from that stillness Livermore spoke of. And that's why his wisdom endures. Because in a digital world of speed, patience is the new rebellion. So when you next open your charts, remember this: you are not here to catch every move. You are here to catch the right one. The one that calls to your system, aligns with your plan, and fits your temperament. Everything else is noise. And if you ever feel that familiar pull, that twitch of impatience whispering, do something, pause, breathe, step back. Because in that moment, you are standing at the same crossroads Livermore stood at a century ago. The difference between action and wisdom. And wisdom, my friend, almost always chooses to wait. In the grand game of speculation, the impatient make history for the patient to profit from. The market is a pendulum, always swinging between fear and greed. But patience? Patience stands still, watching both sides exhaust themselves. That's the real secret Livermore left behind. Not a formula, not a method, but a state of being, because trading, like life, rewards those who can remain composed while others crumble. And if you can master that, if you can hold your fire while the market tests your resolve, you will discover the same truth he did. The big money is not in the buying or selling, but in the waiting. So the next time you're tempted to chase, remember Livermore's ghost, whispering from the ticker tape of time. Sit tight. Not because it's easy, but because it's everything.